The restaurant glowed with warm golden lights, the kind meant to make people feel important. Crystal glasses clinked softly. Low music hummed in the background. This was the kind of place where deals were celebrated and egos were fed. Ethan Blackwood sat at the center table. His tailored suit cost more than most people's monthly rent. His watch reflected the chandelier above. Polished, flawless, expensive. The waiters knew his name. The manager had personally greeted him when he walked in. Everything was under control. "Whenever you're ready, sir," the waiter said politely, holding out the card machine. Ethan slid his black metal card across the table without even looking up. He'd done this thousands of times. Payments were automatic, effortless. Beep. The waiter's smile froze. "I'm sorry, sir, it says declined." Ethan laughed lightly. "That's not possible. Try again." The waiter nodded, slightly nervous, and tapped the screen once more. Beep. Declined. The surrounding tables went quiet. Forks paused mid-air. A couple at the next table glanced over, whispering under their breath. Someone smirked. Ethan felt a strange pressure in his chest. "That card has no limit," he said, his voice lower now. "I understand, sir," the waiter replied gently, "but the system." "Give it here." Ethan took the machine himself, as if authority alone could fix it. He entered the code, slowly, carefully. Declined. A thin line of sweat formed at his temple. He reached for his phone. Dead battery. His assistant. Traveling. His backup card. Left in the car. For the first time in years, there was no safety net. The manager approached, his tone polite but firm. "Sir, if there's another way." Ethan looked around. Faces stared, judged, enjoyed the moment. The man who could buy anything, couldn't buy dinner. And in the far corner of the restaurant, unseen by most, a small girl quietly lowered her spoon and watched it all. Her wide eyes noticing what everyone else missed. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Ethan stood frozen near the table, the card machine still glowing red in his hand. Whispers rippled through the restaurant like a quiet wave. People pretended to sip wine while watching him over the rims of their glasses. Then a chair scraped the floor. It was soft, almost unnoticeable, but it broke the tension. A little girl stood up from the corner table. She was small, thin, the kind of child life had already taught to be careful. Her dress was faded at the elbows, her shoes scuffed and slightly too big. She held her bowl with both hands, as if letting go might make it disappear. "I can help," she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Heads turned. The waiter blinked. The manager frowned slightly, unsure he had heard correctly. A few people chuckled under their breath. Ethan looked down at her, confused. "What did you say?" he asked gently. "I can pay," she repeated, stepping forward. Her hands trembled, but her eyes didn't. "For your food." A soft laugh escaped someone near the bar. Another diner shook their head. This was absurd, almost cruel to watch. Ethan knelt to her level. "That's very kind," he said quietly, "but you don't have to do that." She nodded, as if she understood, but walked past him anyway. At the counter, she carefully placed a small bundle on the marble surface. Coins rolled slightly before she caught them. Pennies, nickels, a few wrinkled bills folded so many times they looked tired. "That's everything," she said. The cashier stared. The manager opened his mouth, then closed it again. "My mama says," the girl continued, her voice steady now, "that when someone is in trouble, you don't ask if they're rich or poor. You just help." The room fell completely silent. Ethan felt something crack inside him, something money had never touched. This wasn't charity. This wasn't pity. This was sacrifice. Behind her, her soup sat untouched on the table, slowly cooling. And for the first time in his life, Ethan realized the most expensive thing in the room wasn't the food, the chandeliers, or even his watch. It was the courage of a child willing to give up her last meal for a stranger. The bill was paid minutes later, but not with coins. Ethan stood near the counter, his voice low as he spoke into a borrowed phone. "One call, one favor." The payment went through instantly. The tension dissolved, and the restaurant returned to its soft music and polite smiles, as if nothing unusual had happened. But for Ethan, everything had changed. He stepped outside into the cool night air. The little girl sat on the curb near the entrance, her feet not quite touching the ground. She held her bowl in her lap, staring into it without eating. The neon lights from the restaurant flickered across her face. Ethan approached slowly, unsure why his heart felt heavier than it ever had during a business loss. "Hey," he said softly. "You don't have to sit out here." She looked up, surprised. "It's okay. Mama's still finishing her shift." He sat beside her, the concrete cold through his suit. "What's your name?" "Lena." "That was very brave in there," Ethan said. "But, why would you give everything you had to someone you don't even know?" Lena shrugged. "You looked scared." The words hit harder than any insult. "Grown-ups think kids don't notice," she continued. "But I do. When people are scared, they feel small. I don't like that feeling." Ethan swallowed. No boardroom had ever stripped him this bare. "That money," he said gently, "was that for dinner?" She nodded. "For tonight. And tomorrow morning too." He looked at the bowl. "Still full. My dad used to say," Lena added, her voice quieter now, "that helping someone doesn't make you poorer. It just reminds you that you're human." Ethan's chest tightened. "Where's your dad now?" She stared at the street. "In heaven, I think." Silence wrapped around them. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered. She smiled faintly. "It's okay. Mama says he still watches." Ethan stood, suddenly unsure of his balance. "Lena," he said, "would it be all right if I helped you and your mom?" She tilted her head. "You already helped me," she said. "You listened." As Ethan watched her take her first careful spoonful of soup, he realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. In one evening, a child with nothing had taught him more about wealth than all his billions combined. 1 week passed. For Ethan Blackwood, it felt longer than a year. The image of Lena standing at the counter, small hands shaking, offering everything she had, refused to leave his mind. Board meetings blurred. Numbers meant nothing. For the first time, his success felt unfinished. So he acted. Lena and her mother were called to Ethan's office downtown. The message was brief, formal, and terrifying. Her mother barely slept the night before, afraid she'd somehow embarrassed herself or her daughter. Ethan met them in a simple room. No cameras, no press. "Please," her mother said nervously, "if Lena did something wrong." "She did something unforgettable," Ethan interrupted gently. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were papers for a small apartment near Lena's school. A full scholarship, books, meals, uniforms included. Medical coverage for her mother. And a savings account with Lena's name on it. Her mother's hands shook. "Sir, we can't accept this." Ethan leaned forward. "A week ago, your daughter gave away her last meal to a stranger. I've spent my life surrounded by people who give only when it costs them nothing." Lena looked up at him. "Is this because of the money?" Ethan smiled softly. "No, it's because of the heart." Tears rolled down her mother's face as she pulled Lena close. The room filled with quiet sobs, not of fear, but relief. Months later, the story spread. Not as gossip, but as action. Ethan created the Lena Foundation, supporting children who choose kindness even when they have very little. No interviews. No awards. Just results. On the foundation's wall hung a simple frame. Inside it were a few coins and a wrinkled bill. Visitors often asked why. Ethan always gave the same answer. "That's the moment I learned what real wealth looks like." And somewhere in a warm apartment, a little girl slept peacefully, never knowing that the smallest act of courage had changed a billionaire, and countless lives forever. Red Heart.